Hey, Miguel Iturrate back here on the CRP, and we are into our wage range for boxing. I got Anthony Scott Piatt over here joining me, and we're going to look at the huge Deontay Wilder, Dominic Breazeale heavyweight confrontation set for the Barclays Center. That card also has featherweight champion Gary Russell Jr. defending his belt against Kiko Martinez of Spain. Anthony, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Pleasure to be back with you. I know we've both been really busy with work and sicknesses and whatnot, but it's glad to be back on the air with you, man. And great fights tonight I'm looking forward to.
For sure, on all counts, they're definitely good to get the wage range back on track here. And what better fight to do it with than heavyweight world championship fight, boxing's glamour division, right?
That's right.
So now you got Deontay Wilder. He's coming in at about a minus 1,000. I've seen it hovering around minus 900, minus 1,000, right around there. A huge favorite, obviously. Not as big as Anthony Joshua was when he faced Breazeale. Breazeale was at Joshua was at minus 2,000 for that fight. So okay. I don't know what that means. Is it that they're disrespecting Wilder by not giving him like the same, or is Breazeale improved, or what the deal is? But still, Wilder almost a prohibitive favorite, and the over/under on this one is set at 9.5 with the over at plus 235 and the under at minus 275. So no one thinks it's going to go that deep with the plus 235 on the over. 9.5, Breazeale, if you can pull it there, that might be one of the better numbers on the day here. What are you looking at here, Scott?
I'm actually with you on that. Dominic Breazeale, his one loss is to Anthony Joshua. He's 20-1 now, 18 knockouts. Of course, Deontay, 40, one draw, but 40 wins, 39 knockouts. I want to point out, though, that a couple of those knockouts, I think, saved Deontay. I think he's been beat on points, and the knockdowns, well, let's face it, Tyson Fury beat the guy. I don't care what the judges say. Wilder lost that fight. If not for knocking him down, then the judges would have agreed with the rest of us sensible folks. But there is an interesting side note. Eric Molina, both these guys have fought him. Deontay knocked out Molina in round 9. Breazeale did it in round 8. That doesn't, tell the whole story, of course, but it's an interesting little side note, and one that makes me think that Dominic probably has a bit of a, chance in this fight. Let's say I'm not surprised that Wilder's not a negative 2,000. I think that negative 1,000 is probably commensurate with how it should go. Look, Wilder saved his own ass with his KO power a couple times. As I say, I think he lost to Tyson. And he's basically lost his shine for me, primarily because of his lack of respect for the history of boxing, the inherent danger of boxing, his flippant threats to kill Breazeale. This is gone too far. I think Wilder will probably win the fight, but I'm rooting for his downfall, and he does have his hands full with Breazeale.
I sort of agree with you about the rhetoric. There's certain lines, and I think what I'm surprised at there is that nobody on his they let it go on for a couple of days. Nobody in the entourage or, the PBC or the people around him told him, I wouldn't go there, because it's such a volatile subject. And I mean, even on the PBC, we've got, was it Pritchard Colon? I don't want to garble the kid's name, but I believe he was in a coma for a long time after that fight. And, kudos to the PBC. In that particular case, Al Heyman, who's very much a shadowy figure, a quiet figure, actually visited Pritchard in the hospital. So it shows that there's concern even up to the very top. So that's why I'm not, I'm wondering why somebody didn't, choose to warn Wilder. Wilder, put it this way, and I don't want to come across as rude or anything like that, but when we met Wilder and he was coming up, that down-home Alabama style, I like,
yep.
Kind of quaint and stuff like that. There was one time where he met Tyson Fury in the ring, and he actually, when Tyson took off his jacket, he goes, "Oh my God!" He reminded me of a preacher man down in Alabama and stuff like that. That was my introduction to Deontay Wilder, and I was right all with him. Then his child and stuff like that. But here, with the threats of killing somebody and not backing off on it or saying it's just talk, actually calling for body bags, offering to pay for the funeral, on separate occasions and stuff like that. I think it's something that you have to take into account. 600 or 700 men have died in the ring in the last century or so. So it's not something to be taken lightly there. And
it's not
I
something to be joked about. It's really, I mean, if we can just be blunt, it's fucking disgusting. It shouldn't be said. Somebody should shut him the fuck up.
Yeah, no, I think unfortunately for him that's going to be more of the reaction. You know what I mean? I mean, it is the 21st century, and people say incredibly vulgar stuff all the time nowadays. From the presidents on down, right? So, however you want to handle it and stuff, maybe that's the world we live in, and I'm getting old. But to me, there are 600 men that are in their graves because of this sport. And that's something that you'd never take lightly and you never disrespect. So, I think Wilder made a PR move there and, compound that with a loss this weekend. And, we could be seeing a real derailment of the Deontay Wilder career. On the bright side, he was talking about how he feels he'll soon be the highest paid athlete in the world. And, when you consider some of the soccer contracts and stuff out there that I think he was, he's expecting something else, but I don't know. And that rhetoric didn't help.
And I'll point out that a loss will hurt him. And if things went wrong and horrible and Breazeale did get injured into a coma or died, that will ruin Wilder as well. So the only way he can come out of this is if he beats Breazeale, and it's a good beating, and they a little bit of sportsmanship after the thing, and he's contrite and maybe apologizes. I stepped over the line, and then never says that shit again. Then maybe he can get back on track. But to me, Wilder has been knocked down several pegs in his that warrior, that honorable warrior status. He's losing it for me. I do think he wins the fight late in the ninth. It's not a bad dog watch for Breazeale at plus 600, but the prop bet that I like is the 9.5. I think it's going to be a volatile fight and anything can happen. But over 9.5 at plus 235, I think Breazeale might be able to make it. He's been knocked down and got up before. Joshua finished him off, I think, in the 7th round, if I remember right. But let's face it, Joshua still needs to be put through some tests, but he is one of the best, if not the best in the world. So a loss to Joshua alone doesn't really downgrade Breazeale too poorly, in my opinion. I do think Wilder should win the fight, but I have to say that I'm pulling for Breazeale.
Very interesting. Now, in the co-feature, we've got basically a showcase fight. And unfortunately for the world of boxing and for Gary Russell Jr., he seems to be in a mold where he fights once a year. And that's just really not enough, because I'm thinking that from what we've seen, that Gary Russell Jr. might be a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter. I'm pretty convinced he's the top 10 already, because he's a highly skilled boxer. He's one of those guys that, on the Olympic teams, we haven't been doing that well, so he doesn't carry a medal or anything like that. But still, that doesn't negate the whole amateur background and pedigree. And he was very, highly skilled coming in as a pro. As a pro, he's been near perfect. Now you look back at his loss, it's to Vasyl Lomachenko, and it was early on in Lomachenko's career before the hype really hit. So you now look back at a majority decision to Lomachenko, and it doesn't look nearly as bad. In fact, it almost looks good, and you've got Russell Jr. saying, hey, one judge changes the card there, and I have a win over Lomachenko. Lomachenko's got 2 losses, and we're having completely different conversations, right? So in this case, he's fighting Kiko Martinez. I like Martinez. I'm a fan of Spanish fighters. I think they bring a lot of grit. And at the high level, they do have guys that are able to compete at times. Martinez has been one of those guys in that he's held a world championship. He's gone to England to compete against their top guns, Carl Frampton, Scott Quigg, Josh Warrington. He's fought in the United States against Leo Santa Cruz, again, another guy who we talk about in heady top 10 pound-for-pound territory at times. So Kiko Martinez has been through the mill. Unfortunately, at 33 years old, I think, it may be one too many dances for him because that's a lot of miles for him. And, when you have a little bit of a straightforward, more of a tough guy style, and, Martinez is a good boxer, but when you compare him to Gary Russell Jr., it's going to look like their levels of difference there. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. Kiko Martinez, it's actually Martinez Sanchez, I believe, but Sergio Martinez is his promoter. Thought I'd throw that out there. Not related, as they're from different parts of the world. But Sergio Martinez, you're right. The Lomachenko fight, Gary Russell has kind of wanted to rematch that fight, I think, and run it back, and I don't blame him. There's an interesting thing here, little prop bet. If you're hanging out tonight with some friends and they haven't watched Wage Rage, let me tell you how to make some money off of them. Bet them that Gary Russell will win at least twice in this fight. Because we have Gary Russell Jr., we have Gary Antonio Russell, and we have Gary Antoine Russell all on the fight card. The three brothers. Obviously, their dad has a bit of an ego. This is a performance
creativity issues, right?
right. Gary Antonio and Antoine. They're not even that different, Antonio and Antoine. Come on, you know what I mean.
But I think it is and I think what you're pointing out actually is a very nice story that the Russell family is a boxing family. Russell Jr. obviously in the showcase fight. He's the world champion. He's the guy ahead of the pack. But part of what he dedicates himself to is, immersing himself in boxing completely, bringing along and training his brothers. His brothers are further behind the curve. I think they have about 10 fights and they're in 8-rounders here. But, if they're near the talent of Gary Russell Jr., then, keep it going, man, because those guys are going to be in the elite of boxing. And if not, it still makes for a nice story, ticket sales, and all that sort of stuff. And, none of that's bad for boxing. I think Gary Russell Jr., is a very good story, just like Wilder was a good story with his daughter and stuff like that. Now with Gary Russell Jr., you're talking about a guy who really does have that pro polish, though, and I don't think you'll have him making a gaffe like that in an interview.
No, I think you're right. Between Gary Antonio Russell and Gary Antoine Russell, I think 13 and 8 fights respectively. But you add up all their different fights with Gary Russell having 30 fights as well, and you're somewhere in that 50 fights between the three of them. And the younger two, I assume they're younger, have not lost, So the only loss between the three Gary Russells is the Lomachenko. That's pretty cool, That's pretty
you can hang your hat on that.
Yeah,
And talking about this one, getting into the nitty-gritty then, Russell Jr. minus 4,000 favorite. Martinez paying back at plus 1,800. The over-under there's at 9.5 with the over at plus 165 and the under at minus 205. Again, the over may be the most interesting number here unless, you're high on Martinez somehow.
No, I think Russell Jr., for some reason, I'm feeling like this one because I do like Martinez as well, is by decision. So I didn't have the over numbers in front of me. If the over is good on that, I would take it.
The over is 9.5 at plus 165.
Go for it. I think this one will probably go past the 9.5. Kiko's lost 8 times, and only 3 of them have been knockouts. 39 victories, 2 draws. So I think Kiko can hang in there with that veteran, wiliness, but I don't think he can win this fight.
Russell Jr., he's the kind of boxer that, to me, really, when we talk about pound-for-pound stuff, I'm not kidding. I do think he is one of the finest, technicians that we have out there. And what that means is that the knockout could come at any time. The punch you don't see, a real short punch that lands with perfect technique and stuff. So Gary Russell Jr. could end the fight at any moment. However, because of his ability to manage a 12-round fight so fully and dominate without having the knockout, I do agree with you. The over-under is something you might want to look at. Looking at the over, if it's a plus with a plus 165. There is a chance there that, though if Martinez comes out determined to make a fight out of it and go out on the shield, Gary Russell Jr. will probably comply him. But if not, I can see Gary Russell Jr. coasting, 120, 108 at the end of the day.
Absolutely. These are going to be great fights. Can't wait to watch them. And just really excited. It's on Showtime, folks. So if you got Showtime, tune in and check those out. There's some other fights on it as well. As we mentioned, 3 Gary Russells. Wilder Breazeale is the headliner. Hey, thanks for by the way, hanging in there. I can hear the rain in the background there in Costa Rica. It's really
crazy,
downpour.
right?
Yeah.
And
But
hopefully everything's cool up at the Barclays Center. You can catch these fights on Showtime. Also worth noting, world heavyweight title action on Showtime. Basically free TV with a subscription, but it's not pay-per-view or anything like that. It's not streaming where you're forced to have, a separate subscription or a phone or, whatever you got going on there. So definitely something to pay attention to tonight. And we will catch you guys after the fights. Any final comments, Anthony? Any plugs or anything?
no, hey, I appreciate it, and I'm glad we're back at it. I missed you. Been a couple of weeks. Glad we're back at it, and just to encourage everybody to listen and subscribe and check out some really cool history that you did recently as well. There's lots of stuff on the Cage Rage podcast and this Wage Rage version as well. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep, if you can, hit like, subscribe, and do all that sort of stuff. And we are here. We will be back throughout the week and results and all that stuff. So I'm Miguel Iturrate signing off for the CRP.